Everyone in life needs a coach. The problem is finding a coach worth their salt is a bit like finding a gold-plated diamond in a field of rough. And today, I believe I have found what may be the archetypal, quintessential queen, dare I say, of all things salon coaching. And her name is Kelly Shaw, and she's chiming in from across, I don't know, just a small body of water, the Atlantic from the UK. And she's joining us today on the Body Beauty Show. Kelly, thanks for being on. How is life?
Hi, Austin. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm super excited to be part of the podcast. And yeah, life's pretty good at the moment, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. As we were talking before the show in our pre-interview chit chat, it is extremely clear that life is going well for you based on, well, we'll get into all that. Things are going well. Now, listeners, I am biased because Kelly is a friend of Diana, who was on the show, I think episode 58, 57, something like that. So she's by default a rock star the same. So this show, I think, is really well suited for salon owners. So here's the question for the audience, those of you that are salon owners, and it's this. Have you ever wished that your salon would work for you so that you don't have to? If that sounds like you, stick around because this is the show for you. And that might be the longest rhyme scheme I've done in my life. I guess a rap career is on the horizon for me. Okay. So Kelly, why don't we start with your, well, I mean, the whole show really is about you and this book that you wrote, which I think, again, salon owners, you need to buy this book, and I won't plug it until the end. You can make up your own minds if you want to buy it or not. But today we're going to talk about Kelly, how she came to be, and the ideas tucked inside of this book that she wrote titled How to Make Your Salon Work So That You Don't Have to. And if you could see the cover, it's a very convincing cover. It's implying that you're relaxing on the beach, on a body of water, on a floaty with a martini. Who doesn't want that? So today we're going to figure out how you can make your salon work so that you don't have to. So on that note, Kelly, who are you? How did you end up here? What is your backstory? Over to you.
God, wow, yeah, fantastic. And yeah, I really am just laying on that little floating device with my martini in my hand. It's not really what happens with the business, but it definitely makes a big difference. But where did it all start? My goodness, it started nearly 30 years ago when I decided that I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to get all of this experience, and I didn't know what to do when I left school. So I thought, I'm going to go work on a cruise ship. And what do I need to do to work on a cruise ship? Because I'm going to get to travel if I work on a cruise ship. And I thought, I'll just go and work behind the bar. I'll pour a few drinks and I'll get to see the world. And what I didn't realize is that you actually need to have like a degree in like cocktail making or whatever to actually get a job on a cruise ship. And I thought, well, I probably should look at something that might be a bit more helpful when I come back off the cruise ships. And I sort of stumbled onto a position called a beauty therapist, and basically a skin technician, an esthetician. I mean, in the UK, it encompasses everything: massage therapist, esthetician, nail technician. We go to school for 2 years to learn everything. And that's how I sort of started. I never did get on a cruise ship. I sort of found that life was quite hard work on them. And I decided that it wasn't for me, but I definitely got to travel the world. I've been fortunate enough that I've spent time in DC. I worked with a skin clinic and partnered with a plastic surgeon in my early 20s. So I got that's probably where I got my huge love of skin from, is actually working, because out in the States, the licensing is slightly different and you're allowed to do things that are a little bit stronger or a little bit deeper than what we were allowed to do in the UK at that time. So I got to do all sorts of fun stuff with peels and with surgeries and sort of assisting. So I think that spurred my love for the skin industry. And then I decided that, well, traveling, it needs to keep happening. I need to sort of keep moving around and seeing what's out there in the world. And I moved away from hands-on treatments into more management roles. And I was really fortunate that I spent a couple of years managing a group of salons in London before deciding that it was time to put myself out into the big wide world. And before I knew it, 6 months down the road, I was working for the Four Seasons in Thailand as a spa director. I'd never even stepped foot in the spa before, let alone knew how to direct one, I guess. But I had a fantastic team and learned a lot on the job. Budgets and things like that were never a strong point, coming from like a therapy background, and that's, I think, really quite a big part of what happens with salon ownership, is that a lot of us come up through a treatment where we're hands-on skills, whether it be hair, whether it be skin, whatever it is, we're hands-on technicians and we build up our businesses, but we don't always get given the right training and understanding of how to run a business. We know how to do the technical side, but not all the boring stuff like staff management and how to put a budget together and, you know, what else I should be doing. So I got to learn all of that in these environments with these amazing hotel groups. Between them and Shangri-La hotels, I worked out in Asia, the Caribbean, and just had a whale of a time. And then I thought, oh, it's time to grow up a little bit and decide what's going to happen for the rest of your life. You're in your mid-30s now, and it's time to think, where are you going to go? And I wanted to come back home to the UK. I decided that hotel life wasn't for me for the rest of my career, and it was time to come back. And I set up my own consulting business. And I was so fortunate that the hotels would fly me back over from the UK to set up their new spas whenever they had a new hotel opening. I would train all the teams, I would set all the standards, we would get everything done, banged out, and then I'd be off and back home. So it was the perfect mix for me. I got to live back home in the UK, so I had my family and my friends around me, but I got to travel and work in these amazing environments. And then 2008 happened and everybody budgets tightened, and obviously all of these general managers were like, we just can't justify flying you over from the UK. We've had to put a stop on all the hotel openings, everything sort of crashed. And I was left without a business, really. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I just happened to get lost down some YouTube wormhole internet thing. And I landed on a site that actually had businesses for sale. And randomly, there was a business for sale in my hometown in the UK that was, I knew where it was. It was like 20 minutes from where I lived. So I contacted the lady, and she was very honest in exactly what I've just said. She was a therapist that had got a business, had ridden on the profits of everything being amazing and clients throwing money at you for, you know, not even doing much. And then when the 2008 financial crisis happened, everything fell out, and she was in a lot of trouble. So she wanted to sell her business to go back home and just work out of her treatment room in her house. And I looked at the opportunity and thought, I know I can make this work. I'd never wanted my own salon. I wasn't one of these girls that sits there and dreams of one day I'll own my own business. It was never there. I fell into it. But that was 13 years ago. And there's been some highs. There's been some lows, a lot of lows. And I think 7 years into having the business, I realized that something really had to change. I wasn't happy. It wasn't giving me the lifestyle that I wanted. I wasn't making as much money as I wanted, and I had staff issue after staff issue. And it just seemed that every minute of the day, I was thinking about this business, and not in a good way. So I got myself a coach and started working, looking at different concepts and ideas, which we brought into the business, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a bit. But it was bringing these concepts in that completely changed my whole experience of running a salon, and it made me fall back in love with it to the point where I don't have to be there. I'm there 1 day a week. And I completely trust my team to basically own it and grow it and, take responsibility for it. And what I decided in all of the lockdowns, because I had quite a bit of time on my hands, as in the UK, we were literally just shut. They just shut us down and shut us in our houses for God knows how long. It just was absolutely crazy. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and I'd been starting working and coaching with a few people. And I thought, actually, I'm explaining what the process is that I went through. This is what people want to hear. So maybe I can help other people. I don't have to necessarily work with everybody, but maybe reading the journey that I went through will, one, make somebody else feel better, because it's a lonely life as a salon owner sometimes. And you think you're doing everything wrong when actually you're doing a great job. You just maybe need some little help here or some pointers here. So I wrote the book, How to Make Your Salon Work So You Don't Have to. And it's my story of my journey of taking a successful business that just felt like it was holding me back and hanging around my neck, if you like, to a place now that I absolutely love it and love being a business owner again. That was a lot, wasn't it?
Good. That's why you're here. Tell us everything. I can't help but think of the story of the prodigal son, but let's put a spin on it and say the prodigal daughter, specifically your falling out of love with salon life, probably because, as you alluded to, hey, this is kind of lonely doing this work. I'm uncertain. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know if I'm making the right decisions. Am I on the right path? Am I in the right direction? Am I going fast enough? Have I set my Excel spreadsheets up correctly for my budget? I have no idea. Wow, I'm out. I'm out of love. I'm all out of love. But you found a way through that fog of uncertainty, let's say. Was writing the book a part of that, emerging through the fog and returning back to your love of salon life?
I think so. I think it was, I mean, the process was always happening, and the steps that I went through and share within the book, I'd started. And then I guess when the pandemic happened, it sort of stopped. I was just at the end of the whole process that I'd gone through. And I have control issues. I think a lot of business owners do. And that was one of the biggest things that was getting in my way. So I think I'd finally got to the stage where I trusted the team and was, pretty much letting them run things. And then this shook everything up again. So the book was great because I was able to go through the whole process again, because writing a book is I had no idea what was involved with the length of, thinking about everything that you've done and writing it down and reading it 100 times. So it was really good to cement everything in my head and realize just how far I had come, so that when we came back after the pandemic, I have been back in the salon a lot more, because all of the processes that I went through, we had to revamp them, if you like, and renew them and get that energy back in. We hadn't worked together as a team for nearly 2 years. And that's one of the core theories, I guess, of what I'm doing, is it's all about my team. And so I had to get that bond back, the trust between them as well as between me, so that they feel empowered again. And that writing the book helped me to cement that last little step. And we've sort of got there again. It's a lot easier to put the steps back in place because we'd already done it once.
I think the act of writing, and tell me if this has been your experience, is the activity of writing is thinking made manifest. And I would imagine in your writing the book, you actually probably did it more for yourself to codify your own thinking, to figure out what you believe, what is right, what is wrong. Was the value that derived primarily in the activity of writing the book, would you say, for your own development, betterment, what have you?
Definitely. I think writing the book made me understand, like I said, how far I'd come on the journey, but it also then reaffirmed how important all the steps are and the difference that it does make. Because when I sort of lost my focus, let's say, and acted in a way that wasn't conducive to my end goal of having a team that runs my business without me, basically, if I got in my own way, then things went bad again. And I can sit there and say now that it really does work, because when you get back on track, it's just, the shift is just crazy within the team. And it's really quite interesting. So now I've tried to play with it and done things wrong on purpose to see the effects it has. It's like my poor team, they're like my little, I don't know, petri dish. They're my little test case. I'm like always experimenting on them.
Yeah.
But now I couldn't do that before because I didn't really believe it. I hadn't fully seen it, and I hadn't fully recognized the part that I played in it. And that is just such a powerful realization to have. And that actually what I'm trying to achieve and to have this business that just runs, it's not as hard as you think if you can let go of all the craziness that comes, unfortunately, from ourselves, and from looking at things a little bit differently, and trusting human nature. It's basically all based on human nature and how we as humans thrive in an environment where you feel trusted, respected, and you feel like you belong. We thrive. It's just, you're going back to psychology and looking at Herzberg, McGregor, and Maslow. You can throw all of those in. That's the basis of what I've created, but from a team perspective. So it's based on psychology.
Psychological safety for your staff is a part of that, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're going to get into the concepts in the book and deconstruct those eventually. I do want to make a quick ask a question rather. I see behind you on your left, it looks like believe, behave,
become.
Yeah. What does that mean to you? What's the significance of that?
Because for me, and this is in the book, and it's, one of the first things that I had to overcome and you have to overcome, is that it's the limiting beliefs that you have. I didn't even know were there. And when I discovered my limiting beliefs, it's like I know things intellectually in my head, but feeling it and actually being it, that's the hard part. And that's what took me time with the business, is that I knew that there were things that was going on that didn't need to be, but I didn't know how to change them. So I guess that to me is the process that I went from, started to believe it. And I remember somebody once saying to me, fake it until you make it. So if you just behave in that way anyway, all of a sudden you trick your mind into just believing it and behaving it, and it becomes you. So I sort of have that, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah, I think we could maybe spend just a few moments on how to unpack that in the sense of putting feet to that. So maybe this will weave in, and then you can share some ideas on how you would pragmatically or practically put feet to that, like specifically the faking it so you make it piece. Like, what does that actually mean? So as a bit of setup, to my question. In a book called Resilience by a Navy SEAL, I can't recall his name, but the book's on resilience, obviously. But he has this idea in the book that is to say, the majority of us, we operate from a feelings first perspective. Well, I don't feel like going to the gym. So then you don't take the action to go to the gym. And then as a result of that, your identity of, let's say you wishy-washily wanted to become a CrossFit champion or bodybuilder will never materialize. So the standard operating system in the BIOS of our wetware in our brains, let's say, by default for the majority is first feelings, then action, then maybe identity. What he makes the case of in this book is who cares about your feelings? And it's paradoxical. Here's why. Instead, you take those three things and you flip them to where your identity is numero uno, followed by action. Then your feelings that you wanted originally in the default state actually materialize in the manner of which you wanted them.
Yeah.
So as I see the believe, behave, become, I wonder if there's any overlap there with, again, first selecting your identity. And you made a remark. God, it was earlier on. You said something to the effect of, I chose to ... AKA identity selection. Then you took the actions, which is the behavioral bit there. And then your feelings, which are the proxy to your becoming the person that you want to be.
Exactly.
Happen. Is there
definitely definitely. And I think that's a big thing, because to be fair, a lot of that is what comes out of, I've just finished reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. And so that was quite handy for me to bring some of that into some last little things that I wanted to work on myself, and to make things, habits rather than these big goals. But I think it just makes such a difference to actually think about the person that you want to be. And for me now, I've got this coaching business. I look at my identity is I am now a salon coach who happens to own a salon. I am not a salon owner that is trying to do coaching. And when I had that mindset shift, then it became a whole different ball game. I actually put myself out there more as a coach, and now do things like this. Whereas before I guess I didn't have that mindset. I was confused with my identity. I was stuck between the two. So I think it plays a big part. And that's what I say to my team when they're struggling, or if they're having an issue. I say, who are you trying to be? Who do you want to be? What does a successful esthetician look like to you? How do you think they would behave? What would they be doing? And get them to bring those actions in, even if they don't believe them or feel them, but make them habits now. And before you know it, then they are that successful person in that identity. So I think that there we go. We've solved the questions of life. This is it.
We've solved the question that is, what is the meaning of life? Fair enough. There's your next book. Maybe there's someone in the audience who is, let's say they're struggling to architect their identity, because I think everything, well, I wasn't going to make the case that everything is downstream of economics, but from a personal perspective, I think everything is downstream of identity selection, it seems like. Do you have any advice on how salon owners can architect their identity?
I think it has to be to actually sit there and think about what you want and what you want from your business as well. I think that's what I struggled with when I was falling out of love with my salon. I still enjoyed it, I still loved it, but I didn't know my identity and what I actually wanted. And it wasn't until I realized that for my salon to make me happy, I need to not be in it every day. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I knew that I was destined for this, really, I guess. And the salon was my stepping stone to get there. And I think to give me a test patch and a bit of credibility, because I'm still doing it and living it every day. But I think to find your identity, I work with so many salon owners that don't know what they want. And they, again, have started on the tools. They're the busiest person. They've got a full column. So they have to then think, I need a team. I need to bring somebody else on. And they just bring people on. But they've never actually thought about, do they want to be an employer? To be an employer is a very different, to be a salon owner that employs staff is a very different identity to being a salon owner that works on their own with their business. You've got two very different businesses. And in my opinion, as soon as you start to employ staff, they are your clients. Your clients are not your business. Your staff are your clients, and it's your job to make them happy. And if you make your staff happy, they will take care of your clients, which will then naturally take care of your bank balance, and everybody will be happy. But that is the thing that I had to learn. And I think a lot of people don't realize, as business owners, we fall into it. We start bringing in employment and start taking on staff, and we've never thought about, who are we as an employer and what do we want to be given to our people? Because that's what's going to make or break the employment experience that you have, let alone them. If you want your employment experience to be, more beneficial and to not completely stress you out, then you need to plan it and look at what it means to you. And by building in that with your vision of your business, I think that's where you sort of start looking at what your identity is and where you want to go with it.
I think Nietzsche has an interesting quote here, which is to say something along the lines of, and I'm going to grotesquely paraphrase and butcher this: you should take a stock of your personal psychic inventory, so understanding your nature, choose a strength, and create art out of it. While I'm completely butchering Nietzsche here. That's the idea, though, is taking stock of what you are. If you're 7 feet tall and you're athletic, you should probably pursue a career in the NBA.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right? And I don't think enough of us are honest with who we are, what our comportment is, what our nature is, what our natural aptitudes and inclinations are. And, putting this in salon purview, salon artist, let's call them beauty therapists purview. Perhaps somebody thinks they want to become an employer because they're pursuing wealth and they think that's the only path to get there. But in reality, their nature might be incongruent with CEO-dom, let's call it. And if they don't listen to that, which, to listen to it, you'd have to, I don't know what other options there are other than taking like personality tests and that kind of thing to figure out what is your nature and are you actually fit for purpose to be a leader of a salon or anything in between. Maybe you are just an employee type. That's cool. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. To be honest with yourself. I guess the only other note from me before we get into the book is I remember a quote or a tweet, quote, I guess the same thing, from Naval Ravikant, who's an angel investor, VC, whatever, in Silicon Valley. He's like the modern day Buddha, let's say, of tech, in that he's wise. I believe he has a tweet that says something to the effect of inspiration is fleeting. Best capture it while you can. That's the idea, at least. Meaning, and tell me if this has been your experience, because I want to make this obviously about you, not me. Here I'm talking too much. Is there was probably a moment where you heard this little faint voice in your head, hey, come back to salon life, like where you fell back in love with it. And it would have been very easy to just ignore it.
Yeah.
But instead you capitalize on that little faint voice. And then it brought you back.
Yeah.
Was that your experience?
Yeah. I loved the spas, but I missed the connections that you get in a salon. a salon, you're seeing the same people, you just build such stronger bonds with all of your clients. Whereas in the spa, you're in a big vacation, people, you know, if people do vacation in the same place every year, great, you might see them once a year, but it's not the same relationships. And that's what I wanted. If I was going to have a business, that's what I wanted to make it. And then having the business was amazing. I absolutely, you know, and even now when I go in and I might do some cover, or I'll work, I'll, you know, be out on the desk, or I'll do some treatments. I absolutely love it. And I used to battle with myself and say, you've got an amazing business and you're really good in it and you like being in it. Why isn't it enough? And it's because that little voice, I guess, is calling me to say, well, actually, what I really love is helping. It's always been about helping people and educating. So it started as a hands-on technician, helping my clients and educating. Then that grew into working with my team to help them and educate. And now it's like, actually, I want the next level. I want to help people like me to go from that feeling of where I was to where I am. I want to help. That's what I want to do now. And I guess, yeah, that little voice has spurred me on again.
Yeah. And it's very easy to ignore because of comfort, status quo, uncertainty, fear, anxiety.
Yeah.
What if I actually did this and listened to myself, my inner voice? Because I don't think, well, you hear these stories of these people. Since I was 6 minutes old, I knew I was going to be a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're like 1% of 1% of the entire planet. Okay, most people aren't like that. They need to collect reference points to get exposure to things they, you know, in the development of their likes and dislikes. And so you just got to capture that voice when it speaks in the back of your head. And I don't think a lot of people really do that. Okay, well, let's get into the book. And we're gonna borrow from the structure of the book because it's already outlined beautifully. So let's start from the beginning, which is this concept that you have of the hidden enemy that is silently destroying your ability to succeed. And if we can do this, it sounds like we'll be able to beat it virtually overnight. So what is the hidden enemy? Tell me everything about the hidden enemy.
So the hidden enemy is you. My hidden enemy was me. It's that subconscious. It's those limiting beliefs that we mentioned, like emotional security that just holds you back. I had this irrational fear that everything was going to fall apart and that I would lose the salon. And I don't know why I thought that, because my God, I'd managed multi-million-pound budgets for these hotels and I'd created all of these new things. I had more business experience than, you know, half of the people that I knew that had their own businesses. And yet I was struggling with staff and with this fear that if I lost the people that worked for me, I would never find anybody good. That was it. And it made me act I just became some ridiculous people pleaser. And it's like now when I hear other owners and they're like, I really struggle to motivate my staff. I'm like, I know what you mean. I was there trying to incentivize people, trying to motivate people, trying to make people happy all the time. And it didn't necessarily work. So then I'd get all stressed out, people would leave. And it wasn't until I understood that I had this, basically, it wasn't even there all the time, but it was just something niggling in the back of my head that just stopped me maybe, you know, behaving in a way that I should have done and actually discipline staff. You know, not that I am an advocate of huge confrontation, but actually if somebody's doing something wrong, they should be told. Not letting people get away with things, not trying to just motivate them and, you know, run stupid incentives because of this fear that kept holding me back. And there's lots of different sort of limiting beliefs. But I think fear is one of the biggest ones because it becomes very debilitating and it stops you. Like you say, it's much easier to stay in your comfort zone of where you are, because I would have these huge doom and gloom scenarios in my head. If this girl leaves, that's it. I'll never be able to find another member of staff. The whole salon will fail. My life will be awful. I'll lose my house. You know, all of a sudden, I'm at like DEFCON 4. And my husband would say to me, just shut it. Just close the business then and just shut it. If it's causing you that much stress. And I'd be like, no, no. So I had to find another way of dealing with it. And that's when I started working with my coach, and we started looking at what limiting beliefs were. And again, this is, I guess, linked where I understood the practicality of it. I could understand it in my head that this is what I was doing, but I still couldn't stop the feeling, the terrible anxiety that would come, and my stomach would feel like it was in knots. And that was the first thing I had to get over. Unfortunately, not overnight. For some people, it happens overnight. For me, it took a bit longer. But once that clicked, I tried like hypnosis, and I tried quite a few different things. I started meditating, which I thought was really weird at the beginning, but I absolutely love it now and do it daily. And if I don't do it, I can feel sometimes anxieties come back in and things like that. I can control it, and I understand what it is now. And if I get a fear, like I did when I wrote the book and thought, my God, nobody's going to read it. It's just I'm going to have like boxes of these things in my house forever. I can deal with it. I've got like a set of tools that allows me to understand it and see it for what it is. But that is what is getting in most people's way, I believe, is those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, there's probably an array of different ways you can deal with those limiting beliefs. Meditation, I'm sure, has been instrumental in dealing with anxiety, because you become a witness to your thoughts, not a victim or at the mercy of your thoughts, let's say. But how did you tactically destroy limiting beliefs? Is there a process? Is there a framework? Is there a tool, a modality? How did you do it?
I did everything. My coach told me about what he did, and he had read a guy called Paul McKenna's book. He's a hypnosis guy. He's big in the UK on TV and stuff like that. But he had a book and a CD that you could that he listened to help him overcome it. And I listened to it, and I understood parts of it, and I could again see the logic behind it, but I can't say it fixed me, if you like. I went for hypnosis and decided that I didn't want to wait and try and work on it on my own. I wanted to actually get some sort of treatment and NLP and things like that. And that made a big difference to me. And just constantly being aware of it and finding ways to bring myself out of it if it happens, to sort of change my behaviors. And I think I learned those techniques probably through some NLP and reading books, so many different books on ways that I could change my behavior and my outlook, and actually just doing it and not sat there procrastinating thinking this is what I should be doing, but actually doing it, taking the action. It's action, isn't it? It all comes back down to that as well, is just being aware of it and using those little tools to help me get over it.
The tools you used, the number one was action. You mentioned NLP, hypnosis. What other tools were in that kit?
I think they were, I mean, a lot of it was talking. It was talking with my coach. It was discussing it. And actually getting the elephant in the room, not denying it, and actually trying to understand that this is what that is. This is just a fear. This is something that's holding me back. There isn't some big, huge disaster that's going to happen if I reprimand a member of the team because she's been late every day for the last 3 weeks, and if she does leave, then actually, would that be such a bad thing as well? Is, from what you're trying to do with the business and where you're trying to get to, do you want people like that within your team? I made excuses for people. So I'm understanding it and being held accountable to actually take that step forward, no matter how uncomfortable it made me feel at the time. That action is then what stopped, I guess it stopped my subconscious from fearing it, because I'd taken the action, and it could start to see, well, no, actually it is okay. I can move on with that. I can do that without everything falling apart.
It's funny how much ointment or medication, so to speak, action provides in the social domain, business domain, every domain where you're paralyzed by whatever it is that is holding you back. But just doing something to face the dragon, which, we're using like fairy tale analogies here, but when you face the dragon and you slay it, you usually find treasure on the other side. However, the converse is if you don't face the dragon and you turn your back and run from it, you empower it. And there's got to be some sort of neurological explanation for that with your neurochemistry and neurobiology, whatever. Yeah. So I think it's better to face, but I think perhaps maybe would you agree that maybe the missing step here is the first step rather, which I'm sure you have experienced, is identify what the hell the limiting belief is so that you can figure out the action to take.
Yeah, definitely.
Take action, listeners. Go take action. That's the punchline. All right. So the six simple steps you can take or you can follow to create a motivated team who will work hard for you, whether you are there or not. Talk to me about these steps.
So the steps are pretty much the whole book, each different step within the journey of what I did to actually create this salon that works, whether I'm there or not. And the biggest step one, I guess, is an action step again. And it's you got to take responsibility, where you are right now with your business, with your team, with yourself. It's all on you, good or bad. Stop blaming everybody else. I used to sit there and blame the world, it's because there's no good staff out there. That's why I'm struggling. There's no good people. We've just, hit a recession. That's why we've got no clients and nobody, well, not nobody, you know what I mean? That's why business is down. It's a recession. Or, there's a new salon that's just opened down the road. That's what's impacting us. I never took responsibility that actually I'm responsible for what happens in that business. And if I just sit there and let things happen to me rather than taking that action to do something, then you're never really going to get anywhere. So I think that's where the first thing came in, was starting to understand that, and it's not a very popular idea with people, is that if you've got problems in your business, you're probably the cause of most of them. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow to actually realize that I was probably responsible for most of my staff issues and, well, all of the issues that I had. So once I was able to take responsibility and understand it, I could look at what you need to do. And what I wasn't doing is I wasn't leading my team. I had a vision. I did have a vision for a business. A lot of people don't, and that would be where you need to start. But I had this vision, but I hadn't really shared it with anybody. It was just in my head. So I didn't have this overriding vision, goal, this purpose, if you like. The salon didn't have a purpose. And none of the team knew what the vision was or what the purpose was. So we didn't have anything that we were all on board together, sort of working towards, if that makes sense. We didn't have this direction. So that was the first thing that I had to do, was actually create that vision and actually share it with the team and get them on board so that they could see where we were going, what it was all about, why their input was so important, what it would mean for them, what they would get out of it, and just to try and create something exciting that we could all feel a part of. That was the first step after I took responsibility in trying to go down this journey to create this salon that works without me being there.
I love rather the idea of everything is your fault. Everything. Everything. Sorry, everything is your fault. Literally. Now that seems extreme. Well, there's a book called Extreme Ownership, which maybe was where I'm getting the idea from Jocko Willink, another Navy SEAL. And I think there's freedom in that, because you're no longer a victim to circumstance. You are the owner of the outcomes despite circumstance, which is empowering, I think. Wow. And the other piece too that I think people overlook is this idea that without vision, people perish. 80% of the population, if we want to cite Pareto here, they're not leaders. They crave, they would die to follow somebody worth being followed. Yeah. And the way you get someone behind you so that you can lead them is to have vision. And without that, again, people perish. Is there any insight on how you can create your own vision as a salon owner that you'd share with the audience?
Well, that's where it comes to knowing you and what you want. So what is your version of where you want to be? So my vision, when I looked at all of this, was I had that light bulb moment that, okay, for me to be happy and to get everything I need my salon to work without me being there. I'd tried it before. I'd stepped away and stepped back. And as I spent less time in the business, things went bad. Standards weren't as upheld as much as they were when I was there. Clients would contact me to say the service wasn't quite the same when I wasn't there. People wouldn't behave in maybe the same way. So things slipped, and I could see that the business had started to dip. So what I wanted couldn't happen the way things were at that time. So that's when I shared with the team that my vision was for us to become, or for them to basically run the salon for me. What I wanted was to create a business that they could all feel a part of, and that would work without me needing to be here. So we would have a set of systems and procedures and processes in place that would make their life easier, because it would mean they would know what was expected of them, because at that point, nobody really knew what was expected of them. I didn't have a consistent form of praise or discipline. Things were, people didn't really know what they could and couldn't do. And it was just all a bit of a mismatch. So by saying to them, this is the vision, this is what I want to create, this is where I'm going. I see us as an advanced skin clinic. These are the types of treatments that I think we should be doing. This is what I want to be. I want to be working with a group of individuals that are all excited to be part of a team, that are happy to take on the responsibility, that you'll not only be doing your clients, but you want to be involved in the running of the business. You want to understand how stock takes work, how budgets work, and you want to be my partners, if you like, in creating something special. And that is my vision. And that's when we had a mix. We had people that were like, well, no, they're not that. They don't want that. They don't want to be part of that vision. That isn't what they were seeing. They want to stick with nail treatments, for example. And it's like, well, that's great, but we're not the business for you. And by having that vision, it gives you that bit of empowerment to then have those conversations with people, or to manage your business in that way, because you've got something that you want to work towards, and you start attracting people that also have that vision and want to be a part of what you're creating. So I would say, as a business owner, what is it that you want your salon to be? Do you want to be a full service salon that's catering, a one-stop shop, so that your clients can come and get their hair done, their nails done, their skin, whatever it is? Then that's what you want to create. That's the vision. How are you going to get there? Do you want to specialize in something else? You know, what is it that your business is there? Why are you there? Why is it that you're doing what you're doing? Because if you don't understand why you're doing it, you're never going to inspire people to want to be part of what you're creating, because there's nothing there that's got no heart and soul to it, if you like. That's what your vision should be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Have a vision, or it's fair to say that you'll probably perish, is my guess. Well, let's jump to the final two here. So there is, well, this is the third of four. The two things you must absolutely do to make sure that you never have another problem member of your staff to deal with again. What are those two things?
This is my favorite. This is my favorite, because I was introduced to this concept by my coach, and I just didn't believe him and thought, this can't work. This is going to be just so. It's in the book, I call it my hyacinth problem, or a hyacinth process. Now, it's not going to make much sense. It's based on a character from an English sitcom back in the 90s.
Okay.
Her name was Hyacinth Bouquet, and you can find it on YouTube, and she's just a crazy, crazy, crazy woman. She's basically, her behavior just makes everybody's life around her, everybody that's in her life, her behavior makes their life just hell. She has to have everything done a certain way in order to make herself feel good. She's the typical example of like your square peg trying to be in a round hole. And that's what my hyacinth thing is. It's about somebody's behavior. It's got nothing to do with the person themselves. They can be perfectly pleasant people, but in order to get their emotional needs met, the way they're behaving may not be conducive for success in your salon environment, if that makes sense. So an example would be, I had a member of the team who, when we talked about this great vision and this is where we wanted to go, sat there with arms crossed. Well, I don't want to do that. I wouldn't not be able to do manicures. I don't actually know what I would do. I don't think this is a good idea. So that is behavior that's gonna railroad my vision and could start infecting other people in the team to bring doubts. And so when I have somebody that's displaying a behavior that isn't working or positive for the team, then what you do is you basically take them to one side and you politely, calmly, non-emotionally tell them what it is that they've done wrong, what the consequences will be if they do it again, and then just leave it at that. And then for every interaction, I'm just business. There's no trying to make them motivated, trying to make them feel like they fit in, all the rest of it. It's like, if they do something well, I will praise them and give them the respect and the praise they deserve. If they do it wrong again, you must follow up on those consequences, otherwise they have no meaning. And then what I found is that basically what happens, and it can take some time, so you've got to be very strong and keep going with it. But what will happen naturally is that that person will either leave of their own accord because they're not getting that, you're not feeding what they need anymore, so they'll go to work somewhere else, or their behavior will change because they enjoy the praise that they're getting, and then all of a sudden they become somebody that is an integral part of your team and you want them to stay. But either way, your team and your life gets cemented because that person isn't there with the upset. And I have worked through this process personally in my business, and it does exactly that. Some people have moved on where they are in a much better fit for the business than mine, and others have changed and are to this day still there, fantastic part of the team. So it sounds too simple, but it did flag for me, which became one of the other steps that you have to go through. It did flag for me that I didn't have any standards, or I had nothing to see if they were doing something that was a behavior that they shouldn't be, if you like. So that's where my whole set of systems and processes and things came into play. We created them together as a team, because I couldn't just say you all have to do it this way, because people don't buy into that. So I, again, as part of my vision, explained that I want to create some procedures. We call it, this is how we do stuff. So this is how we blah, blah, blah. I said, but I want you guys to be involved because we need to do it together, because this is how we're all going to work as a team. So I got their buy-in. It became really exciting. And we've got a big manual that's our "this is how we do stuff" manual that doesn't sit up on a shelf somewhere like most operations manuals I've ever used in everywhere I've ever worked. This is our Bible, and the team are very protective of it because they created it and they manage themselves against it. And we've all signed it to say, each one, once we've created this process, we all sign it to say that we've understood the process and we agree to work by it. So then if somebody isn't, I have, this is what you're doing wrong. If you do this again, there will be consequences, and I've got backup. And it just changes. I don't get nervous about confrontation. I don't have to think about disciplining in that way. It's a thing we've all done together. We've all agreed by this, and it makes my life of managing any conflict a hell of a lot easier.
Co-authoring an agreed to set of terms of which everyone operates from, I think, is the only way to get mass buy-in of a strategy, tactical framework, operational framework, etc. And this is bringing to mind the book "It's Your Ship," which is a book written by Admiral Michael Abrashov. And I don't know if have you heard of this book, or okay?
No.
So he took one of the worst ships in the Navy.
Oh, I've heard the story though, I think now. Yeah.
It's a fantastic read. I'd strongly implore all the leaders in the audience to go pick up a copy of this, because exactly what Kelly's saying is exactly what he advocates for. Is You can either lead tyrannically and say, this is how it's going to be done, or you can invite your team into the authorship of whatever it is that you're architecting, get their buy-in, which then leads to what I'm envisioning is um, the way in which you have managed to balance what you call team esteem, where they feel like they're involved, they feel like they're owners, they feel like they're a part of a democratically selected process for how they navigate their days, et cetera. And they're not victim to what would otherwise be, in the case of poor management, dictatorial, you shall do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And it's very powerful. It's very powerful to have that, and they become very protective of it. And so then when anybody new joins, they immediately, because that set of processes, it basically becomes our culture, and that's what we live and breathe and live by. And so when people step out of it, and it can happen for people can have a bad day, things can be going on in personal, whatever, something can happen to make somebody display behavior or not have a bit of disruption, but the team will support them, but they will point out, look, you're behaving in this way, this is what we need to do about it. And if it's long term, then that person will be gone, and anybody new that joins gets immersed in this culture from day one. And again, if I've done my job properly through the interview stage by looking at people and hiring for attitudes and beliefs rather than skills, they should slot into the team anyway. And they then have something, they know no different. So this is, you don't have those issues, and anybody that doesn't fit in gets moved on quite quickly.
I love that idea of having them literally sign something to signal ownership. And it's an agreement. It's an agreement. One of the things I just was turned on to from, I believe his name is Steve Chandler. He's a coach for executives and what have you. And he has this entire piece on expectations versus agreement and why generally undefined expectations, which let's delineate the two, because of course an agreement contains expectations that they agree to. But without having some sort of codified, mutually agreed to set of operating, let's say, rhythms and what have you, they don't know what good looks like because there is no yardstick. And then the further step of you having them literally sign something is extremely interesting. And I don't think a lot of people do that with their staff. And so that's an idea that the listeners should steal, by the way, because that's a great idea. All right, well, let's pivot to the last section here, which is a hell of a promise. Kelly, I must say, this is one of the most audacious promises I have seen, maybe ever today, at least, maybe of all time. How can I easily grow my turnover by 101.6%, very specific number there, just by being in honor of Pareto, 20% better at my marketing? Show me the way.
I think it's a simple concept of, when it comes to marketing, make it, for example, things like, we've been in business for 10 years, we're extremely qualified, we've got the most experienced therapists, this is us, me. And when we started saying, maybe the same thing, that, because we've been in business for 10 years, it means you're going to get the most experienced therapists that are able to deal with your skin concerns, blah, blah, blah. That sort of thing is actually, we flipped everything that we did to focus on the client and what is their pain. What is it that they want fixing, and we give them the solution to that. We became more solutions based. And what is it? Rather than just talking generically, it became more targeted. So we did the whole AIDA principle where, we grabbed people with their headline to get their attention, and then, went a bit more in depth with what it was we were doing, gave them directions, actions to take. And I think the biggest thing we did was we took a leaf out of Domino's book, and we gave a guarantee and a promise. We came up with a story and what it was we were all about. What is our promise? What do we promise our clients? And it became part of the culture and our why. And it was all about education, and it was listening. We found, especially in this industry, and it's a funny one, because whether you're doing hair, whether you're doing aesthetics, skin, anything, one of the biggest things they teach you at school, the first thing you do when you're about to work with your client is you do a consultation. Yet 80% of businesses, of salons, therapists, hairdressers, everything, don't do that. Or if they do, it's not actually a very good one. So we talked all about our promise, and we have it all over. It's all over the salon's website. I've got it all over the walls. We talk about it with our clients, is that you can trust us to listen and to care. It's just what we do. And it came from when we were trying to get a bit of feedback from our customers to find out why they came to us. And it was the general stuff, oh, your service is great, blah, blah, blah. But then what started coming out, because we were trying to find our USP, and it's like, oh, why should somebody come to us? Because we're great at our treatments. It's like everybody says that. What is it that we do different? And what kept coming out of this market survey was that people feel listened to when they come to us. They feel like we actually listen to them, and then we were all about bespoke treatments anyway, so it all sort of fitted in. So we started shouting about that, making it all client focused and talking about our promise. So we are attracting the people that want to be listened to. And then we topped it off with our absolute happiness guarantee. So we guarantee that people will leave 100% absolute happiness guarantee. Otherwise, we'll do something about it. And the girls were all a bit panicked at this at first, thinking everybody's going to start saying they're not happy so that they can get a refund. And I said, no, and if people do, let them have it. I remember I was fortunate enough to, what was it? Oh, the Customer Service Revolution, one of the books I've got. I saw him speak. He came over to the UK at one of these seminars I was on, and I just loved what he said about things like that, don't put barriers in with the customers. If give away everything, not everybody's going to take it. Don't be, people are too scared that you can't give this away, or you can't offer a money back guarantee or anything like that, because people will take advantage. You might get one or two, then let them have it. But what that shows to the consumer, the confidence that you have in what you're doing, tied in with that client focused marketing, just made a huge difference. So to actually find what your unique point is, and then just shout about, and it's your why, isn't it? It's why you're there. That's what makes it special. It all ties back in with your vision, and it all sort of comes back full circle, really. But yeah, just doing things a little bit differently.
I can think of no better place to end the conversation than there. How enlightening. We've got all the secrets now on how to set our salons up in such a way that they work for us and us not work for them. So, given that you are in the UK and it is, I don't know, 3 a.m. your time, What, if any, other final notes would you want to share with the audience as we wrap up the show today?
I would say that, you know, being a salon owner is hard. Don't beat yourself up, and don't be scared to ask for help. I think it's it it made a huge difference in my business having somebody to talk to, somebody that you can bounce ideas off of, and just to have that bit of a connection with to help grow your business. Don't feel like you have to be doing this all by yourself. And don't look at everybody's Instagram and think that they're amazing and their life is, they're sitting there pretty on their big pot of gold or whatever. It's like, because, unfortunately, with the businesses that I work with, unfortunately, within this industry, a lot of them aren't doing as well as they could be. And we as an industry need to own that and change that, and start, looking at things as a business. It might be your passion, but it's also a business. It has to sustain your life, and there's a way of making that happen.
Who is your perfect coaching client?
Somebody who is ready to make the change. Somebody that has, a business that they're happy with, or just needs something. They know that something's not right and they're not sure where to go. Somebody that is willing to listen to make that change, that knows that something has to change in order for it to, and I can help them find what that change is. But it's somebody that's where I was, as what we say in England, it's I had my sod it moment. Something's got to change. I've had enough. So sod it. That's it. I'm done. And that's who I work with the most, is people that have reached that. They know something needs to change. They're not quite sure what needs to happen. They've read the books. They've done the online courses. They've listened to things like this. And it's like, oh, I need something, but I don't know what it is. Then ask someone for help.
Everyone needs an oracle of Delphi, a wise one in your corner. So, Kelly, you have my endorsement. So, listeners, I don't know if you want to reach out to Kelly. Where can the listeners find you, Kelly?
So my website is kellyshaw.me. And that has got all of my information. On Instagram at kellyshaw.me. Facebook is everything. So it's just Kelly Shaw me.
Got it.
And they'll find me.
I'm going to spell it because there are a few ways to spell Kelly. So
Yes.
It's KELLYSHAW.ME is her website, and then her Insta handle and the rest of it as well. Kelly, it's been an absolute treat. I'm so glad we can make this happen. And again, thank you for doing this.
No, thank you. It's been really good fun. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will talk soon. Bye-bye.